This is a paid commercial program that is sponsored by Fitzwilliams Financial. The content and views expressed are completely those of the sponsor.
Welcome to Spot on the Money. I'm your host, Betsy Hume. I'm so excited you decided to join us today because I have with me the CEO of Fitzwilliams Financial, Mr. Tim Fitzwilliams. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Betsy? I'm doing wonderful. Very blessed. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
It is a pleasure to have you. I'm so excited. I've been thinking of all the questions I want to ask you before you come, so get ready, sir.
I'm going to do my best.
I'm about to blow your mind with all of my knowledge that I don't have and need. So my first question might seem very, very basic, but again, I want to really break it down for myself and for our viewers. How do you know if you need a financial advisor in your life?
That's a great question, Betsy, because I think a lot of people now are able to see that they can do a lot on their own.
Right.
And in the last 10 years, we've had such a great market, right?
Yeah.
So it's really hard to internalize that and be like, maybe I need some help.
Right.
Because you don't know how to check on your portfolio to know a lot of the things you don't know. So when you go to an advisor, when you come to a firm like ours and you get a checkup, when you get what we call our green light retirement check, when you're going through that analytically, line by line, figuring out what each thing you have in your portfolio means, then you start to have that knowledge and you can kind of make a decision. I can do this on my own.
Right.
Or I can't. The problem is if you think you can do it on your own and you don't know all the things you don't know.
Yes.
That's where it can get hectic.
That is so key. And I can say personally, after talking to you just a little bit, I am surprised by how many things I didn't know that I didn't know. So you're right. It always helps to have an outside eye, especially a professional, experienced eye in these matters. How does it work at your firm? How do you function as an advisor within your firm itself?
Well, Betsy, I say this all the time when I speak in engagements and whatnot. I'm not good at a lot of things. I'm just not. But I am an economist. And by that, it means I do what I do best and I trade for the best, for the rest. What I look for is people that are better than me in certain lanes. So we bring on the experts, such as an attorney for estate planning purposes, tax planning. We have our CPA. We have a tax accountant. We have access to tax attorneys. We get into investments planning with our CFA, right, which is a portfolio manager that we bring in side of our firm to manage and help our clients out, which most people never even get a chance to talk to a CFA, let alone have them have a relationship with them.
Absolutely. I love that idea because I feel like a lot of people assume that a financial planner or a financial advisor is going to be someone who knows everything and talks above their head and really is kind of out of their depth of water. But it sounds like you understand the importance of surrounding yourself with experts, just like you recommend clients to do by getting a financial advisor in the first place. That synergy seems really important.
I think that's the most important thing ever. I believe that you can't do everything the best. And a lot of financial advisors are good at what they do. But you can't stare at the screen all day and figure out what trades to make. At the same time, look at a long-term care scenario. At the same time, look at someone's taxes and consider yourself to be the best at all of them.
Right.
And even if you do go to school and you do get that designation or that degree in each one of those parts, and you have all of that knowledge, how are you going to say, this is the lane that I want, that I'm going to master? It's very difficult. So what I do is I find the people that did master a lane, and then I bring them into the firm.
So smart. I think that's a really smart way to do it. And I think it would be really, really comforting to your clients to know that they have not just one expert, but a whole team of experts that are behind them in their corner, keeping an eye out for them. How often would you recommend that clients should be talking to or meeting with their financial advisors or their team of experts as they have with Fitzwilliams Financial?
Sure. We get that question a lot.
Yeah.
I really say everyone's different when it comes to that. A lot of people like quarterly reviews, but some people, retirees, depending on how they set up their portfolio, maybe they set it up more in a conservative manner to where they have income for life and they want to travel. We have a client I can think of right now that's in France and they like to go there quite a lot. So we're not calling them all the time, right? So when they're in, we get with them and we go over things. So everyone's a little bit different. But I say on average, Betsy, most people like about a quarterly touch to review, to go over things, right? It keeps them in the know and what's happening. And then, of course, we like to have a lot of events with our clients as well. So we have that personal side as well we like to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because a quarterly review is what, every 3 months. And I feel like that's the perfect amount of time for you to forget about what you talked about the last time, and also the perfect amount of time for you to want to know what's going on with your portfolio at that moment.
Absolutely. And people get busy. Everybody has a busy life. Everything's happening, especially with the pandemic, right? It's so hard to concentrate. The last thing you ever want to do is sit down and talk about your finances.
Seriously, absolutely. I mean, in any given moment, that's probably the last thing most people want to do, especially in the pandemic. Absolutely. So are there other types of advisory styles? I really like the idea that you're saying of having a team around you of other people that really excel in all the little lanes, like you were saying. Is that how most financial advisors work, or do some financial advisors think that they're kind of a one-stop shop and they're there for you?
I truly believe we're the exception to that rule. We really kind of separate ourselves by doing that. Most advisors truly are in one particular lane. They're either going to be focused on insurance, or they're just focused on portfolios or investments. Most folks aren't going to cover all the different parts of a good holistic financial plan. And a lot of times they charge fees up front just to have someone even build a plan or to even review their stuff. And I'm not a fan of that. I really believe in my heart that people need to know what they have. And so to do that, that's why we offer our complimentary analysis, where people can come in, get their green light retirement check, find out at least what they have. Know what's in your portfolio. Are you hedged for inflation? Are you hedged for taxes? Are you in the best situation possible? And are you emotionally okay with it?
Right.
That's a huge part of things. When life comes at you, you change how you see things. You may be saving and doing great and having a pension and making plenty of money, and you go and you buy that Corvette you always wanted, for example. But you forget, when you retire, you no longer have that second job income. You still have that car payment. Was that planned in?
Right.
And so it's so important to make sure that you truly know what you have.
All the little things.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, we have to take a quick commercial break. But before we go, I would love for you to let the audience know what kind of opportunity you have for them today, because it's really a big one. Sure,
Betsy. For those of you tuning in today, we appreciate you doing so. You can give us a call at 1-800-685-3194 if you'd like to be able to have a complimentary green light retirement check on your portfolio, so you know what you have, so you don't have to wonder, what are my fees? Am I in the right position with taxes? Am I doing the right thing of taking Social Security at the age I want to take it at? If you're that person, feel free to give us a call at 1-800-685-3194. I am so excited for all of you to have this opportunity. Like Tim said, there are so many moving parts in all of our lives, let alone our financial life. It's even more complicated than we even want to think about. So I urge you to take this opportunity to get a professional set of eyes, a team of experts, as Tim said. Well, we're about to have to take a break, but I have to squeeze one more question in. And forgive me, Tim, it might be a dumb question, but Tim always tells me there are no dumb questions. There's no dumb questions.
The only dumb thing is not to ask, if you want to know. So here's my possibly dumb question. If I have an annuity, doesn't the insurance company keep all my money if I die? How does that work?
Oh, that's a great question. And there's a reason why there's confusion, because what you just stated is a technical term called annuitization. So you opted to turn your lump sum into a pension, just like if you had a pension at your job, right? When you die, unless you make an augmentation to it prior to death, then it goes away.
Right.
Well, it's the same thing with an annuity. If you opt to annuitize, which we're not a component of that, we don't propose that people do that. In fact, we like the fact that annuities allow you not to annuitize and still get paid income for life. And so to answer your question directly, it can do that, but the right thing to do, in my opinion, is to allow the annuity to pay whatever's left over after it's paid out its income. Now, if it's ran out of money, then it's ran out of money, right?
Right.
And if the person got income for the rest of their life, that may be a good trade-off. But if it hasn't ran out of money and the person dies prematurely, then whatever balance is there goes to the beneficiary.
Interesting. Wow, I've already learned so much just in this segment alone. I can't wait to get you back to ask you more questions.
Sure.
We do have to take a quick break. But before we do, I wonder if you can run by the offer that you have for all of our viewers today.
Absolutely, Betsy. Appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you watching today, we appreciate you taking the time and doing so. If you would like to understand more about today's topic, which was annuities, are they good for you? Are they bad for you? Do I need to replace my income? Do you have one, but you're confused at how it works? And you want to know how much it may cost you to have it. Maybe you're paying some fee, but perhaps it's not exactly what you think it is. If you want to find out exactly how it works, give us a call. You can have our green light retirement check. You call 1-800-685-3194 and you'll talk to one of my team members. We'll figure out what you want to accomplish in life, what you have, and then we'll analyze it and we'll give you all the answers you want to know so that way you know what you have, right? That's what it's all about. So if you want to know if you have an annuity, if you should have an annuity or not, give us a call. And we will tell you, because we are a fiduciary-based firm, and we will not lead you with our interest first. It will be your interest first. So again, that number, 1-800-685-3194.
Wow, that is such a good point. Folks, as Tim said, the very first step is to know what you have. Before you can know what you need, before you can know what your best next steps are, you have to know right where you're at right now. Pick up the phone, give us a call, 800-685-3194, and get that knowledge so you can sleep better at night. Don't go anywhere. I've got more questions for Tim Fitzwilliams when we come back on Spot on the Money. Hello and welcome back to Spot on the Money. I'm your host, Betsy Hume. I am joined again today by the CEO of Fitzwilliams Financial, Mr. Tim Fitzwilliams. How are you, sir?
I'm great.
I am so excited to have you. I want to ask you a million different questions. The next topic I want to get into is one that I think is probably important to every single person in this country, and that's taxes.
Sure.
We're all concerned about taxes all the time. What do you think is going to happen to taxes?
Well, that's the most exciting subject, right?
Yes.
So everybody loves to talk about taxes. Well, the thing is, we have to realize where we are as a country. You know, take away the media, take away the political aspects, and just really look at the country. We're in debt.
Yeah.
And the only way you can get out of that is either spend less or tax more.
Right. That's the truth of it.
And so there has to be a strategy around that. So we believe when you look at historical rates, right now, today, taxes are on sale, Betsy.
Wow.
They're actually in the lowest rates we've been in a long, long, long time. So the only other way it can go is up.
Yeah.
So we feel taxes are going to go up. And that doesn't mean income tax. We're talking across the board.
Right.
And that's where it gets difficult for the consumer to understand that's not an expert in that field, because there's all different types of taxes, especially if you're retired. The whole game changes completely when you retire.
That is so interesting, yeah, because I think the average person, myself included, kind of assumes that taxes are this big burden that we have in our younger years when we're really bringing in a lot of income, because all we're most familiar with is income tax. That's what we've been taught about our whole lives. But can you talk a little bit more about how taxes get more complicated in retirement? Because I think that's probably a surprise to some of our viewers.
Sure, and there's that age-old myth, right? When I retire, I won't have to worry about it. Well, if you want to keep your income the same, you do, right?
Yeah.
So taxes are a real concern for when you retire for a couple of reasons. Most people work their entire lives putting away to like a 401, IRA, alphabet soup, something like that, right? So as they do that, that's growing on a tax-deferred basis. Now, when they get a certain age, sure, you can take it out without having a penalty, but it's still income tax. So a lot of people may think, oh, I want to start a business, or I want to go buy some real estate, and you go to that 401k, you take it out, Well, maybe it's $300,000 you took out. That's income, Betsy.
Right.
Which could put you in a whole different bracket. And that's the concern. So you really need to understand, what do you have? And when you're retired, you may be using that IRA, that 401k, as a source of income. And thus it could increase your taxes even more.
That's such an important perspective to put on it, because I think you're right. When we think of retirement, we think we're not working anymore, so we don't really have any income coming in. But there's always ways to bring income in. In fact, you have to continue to live, right?
Retirees want cell phones and iPads too,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
So, I mean, they're not staying behind and letting everybody else go. I mean, you see that all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to keep up, and the world changes. 20, 30 years ago, the conversation of having a cell phone in your pocket and a bill every month wasn't a thing.
Right.
But today it is. Well, how are you going to pay for these new concepts and ideas?
Yeah.
If you're retired, you're on fixed income, or you're living off your portfolio.
Yeah.
So you have to think about how you want your portfolio invested. And you also have to think about budgeting and planning and having those things in play. And that's without having to worry about the factor of health.
Right.
That can affect the retiree. So when we look at taxes and retirement, we take it very serious, because we feel taxes are going to affect retirees the most.
Right.
Because they're having to cash in on those tax-deferred accounts that are now going to be ordinary income.
Wow, that's so interesting to remember as a person of any age, but especially people who are approaching retirement, that it's going to be a different landscape for them.
Absolutely.
What do you think about some of these proposed tax changes that we hear so much about? Do you think they're really going to happen? Do you think they're really going to affect us very much? What's your take on that?
I feel there has to be some type of change in taxation.
Yeah.
And the only way it makes sense, from what I've seen and my team of experts have seen, is that it has to increase at some point.
Right.
What mattered is how is that going to happen? So there's a lot of talk about real estate, not being able to have a step up in cost basis, not to confuse the audience. But what we're saying is, if you die and you want to leave your house to your children, right now you can do that.
Right.
There's no problem. There's talk about changing that now that child that inherits the home, or that adult child that inherits that home, is going to have to pay taxes on it.
Right.
That changes the landscape. They already have changed how IRAs work from a wealth transfer standpoint. It's no longer a wealth transfer vehicle. You can't stretch it out anymore. And what's interesting, Betsy, when you say you hear the proposals, all we heard when they made that change was the new RMD age is 72. No one talked about how the stretch IRA was going away.
They spin it.
Exactly. So I get very concerned for my clients and the way we want our firm to move on and navigate these waters when I hear a proposal, because you never know what else is inside that proposal that can affect you.
What's the fine writing say, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And capital gains is something a lot of people don't understand, so it's easy to get people to agree with it, because immediately people say, oh, that's the rich.
Interesting.
And with that, the majority of folks may say, oh, well, that's fine. They don't realize it can affect their portfolios.
Yeah.
It can affect sales of real estate and things like that, which people strive very hard to have, and then all of a sudden they're hit with a bill they weren't expecting.
Right. So yeah, speaking of the ultra wealthy, you hear a lot about taxes going up for the very, very rich in this country, but what about the people who only have a few $1 million or even a few $100,000? How do you think taxes are going to be changing for them?
Well, Betsy, I believe it's going to change across the board.
Right.
I do believe it's going to change across the board. I do believe there's different strategies based on your wealth.
Okay.
However, with the hype of talking about estate tax, that was something we just kind of shelved off to only the ultra wealthy, right? Really 11 million and up, you don't even talk about it until you get to that stage. At one time, it was $1 million.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Well, right. A lot of people, houses, and a couple of investments, a husband and wife working their whole life, they have more than $1 million. And if that goes to that level, then a lot of people are going to be affected when they pass that on to their heirs.
Right.
And you're talking about, it might be as high as a 50% tax.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So there's ways to plan for that. And there's ways to strategize around that. In fact, we do that an awful lot. I could think of a few people that's come into my office that had wealth and felt like they had it all figured out, and it was great. But when we started talking about, are you concerned about estate tax and losing half of what you saved going to the government? Yeah, you know, they were concerned.
Yeah.
Well, how's that going to happen? Can I just gift it all away? No, it doesn't quite work like that. We actually have to have a strategy and a plan, and we got to go through that in detail.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's going to affect a lot of folks, especially if that estate tax threshold comes down.
Well, and especially as you were saying, just the bare facts that we're in debt. I think everyone's going to have to chip in to help us get out of that.
At some level, I agree. Yeah.
Well, we have to take another quick commercial break. I wish we could just talk all day, especially about taxes. But before we go away, I want to make sure you let everyone know what an amazing opportunity you have for them today.
Absolutely, Betsy. If you are one of those people who's listening today and you feel that taxes is one of those subjects that you're just kind of confused about, and maybe you've gone to your accountant or your CPA, but you still don't feel like you've really gotten the answers you want, and it's not like they're doing you a disservice, it's just, it's really hard to put it all out there at one time. You want to give us a call, because we're going to go through tax planning, not just tax preparation, not just your tax return. We'll do that for you as well. But you want to give us a call so you understand how estate tax could affect you, how these tax proposals could affect you. And when you do that, you just pick up the phone and dial 1-800-685-3194. Again, 1-800-685-3194.
Folks, you heard the man. Take advantage of this opportunity. Taxes are so complicated. Let someone who has some real experience, some real expertise take a look at it for you. 800-685-3194. And don't go away. I have more questions for you, Tim. We'll be right back on Spot on the Money. Hello and welcome back to Spot on the Money. I'm your host, Betsy Hume. I am joined again by the very knowledgeable Mr. Tim Fitzwilliams, CEO of Fitzwilliams Financial. Hi, Tim. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Betsy.
I am so excited about everything we've already learned from you. I feel like you're such a wealth of information. But I want to touch on one more subject that I think is really important and should be very important to all of our viewers, and that is long-term care. Do you think that everyone should be considering long-term care? Do you think that that's a coverage that almost everyone needs, or is that something that some people need and some people don't? What's your take on that?
Sure, Betsy. First, I want to thank you for the compliments, but I want you to understand and our viewers to understand it's not me, it's my team. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have a team and the support that I had. With that being said, long-term care is something special to me. It has a place in my heart. You see, my father was diagnosed with dementia.
Oh, tell me.
And he was a retired military vet, and he thought he had things planned out, and unfortunately, they didn't plan out the way that he thought they were going to go.
Oh, no.
Yes, he had support. Yes, he had people that would come and bathe him from the military, but it wasn't enough. I wasn't satisfied with that.
Yeah.
And so I had to step in, and I'm so thankful and blessed that I could do that.
Yeah.
But it was something I had to do because he wanted to stay in the home.
Right.
And we had a mother-in-law suite where he and my mother could stay, and we could tend to them and help them. But it was important for us to make sure that we were giving them the best quality care we could. And so when you ask me, does it affect someone, or when does it affect one? I wasn't a retiree.
Right.
It affected me.
And you're right. With him being a veteran, I think a lot of people would assume, well, everything will be taken care of. But you're right. It's not probably going to be enough for your standards for your loved ones, as you should have high standards for your loved ones.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, a lot of marketing has gone into long-term care.
Yeah.
It's a big business.
Sure.
There's some policies, actually, Betsy, that don't pay for someone to come into the home.
Right.
Even though the person may say, well, I have a long-term care policy, I'm good. I don't need to worry about it. But when you read the details, maybe there's a limitation. Maybe this has to happen for this to happen, right? It's in the details, right? So you have to comb through that. I remember one particular person, he was retiring, and this is a very intelligent person, right, in the medical field, highly skilled in their trade, and he's retiring and he brings me his long-term care policy and we're going through it detail by detail. And I started pointing out, well, this is the maximum for this.
Right.
This has to happen for this. And it was very enlightening to them.
Yeah.
Because it let them know that that wasn't good enough.
Right.
They needed more. And you know what's really sad is that particular client actually ended up going into where they need long-term care.
Oh, no.
So we watched that from the beginning to the stage that they're in now.
Wow.
And right now, thank goodness, thank God they came in and got their estate plan set up and their trust and power of attorney set up, because without having that knowledge, without knowing about that long-term care, they wouldn't be happy. But you know what's amazing? Because we did that prior planning, instead of worrying about the house and the bills and what they could do in their budget, they're now being able to remodel their kitchen and have the kitchen of their dreams, because we planned it appropriately.
Oh, I love that.
And it's not draining their account. So that's such a blessing. It was so amazing to be able to see that happen.
Yeah.
And so long-term care is for everyone.
Wow.
It's statistically proving that you're going to need it. It's about what do you need.
Right.
People think long-term care is only in a nursing home.
That's what
that
I was
I'm going to be
just
confined in this nursing home. I'm going to be on this bed. I don't want that life. Okay, maybe you don't. What about when you need to go to the doctor for the checkup?
Yeah.
What about you just want groceries? What about my dad just wanted to go to a movie?
Right.
You know, when I would just pick him up and drive him around and just let the wind blow.
Yeah.
It's that type of stuff. All of that costs money, and it affects people.
Yeah.
So there's a huge burden when it comes to long-term care, both financially, psychologically,
Yes.
and emotionally. It's a lot on the partner. That's something a lot of people don't talk about.
Right.
Right? Let's face it. Most long-term care scenarios for the long term are women.
Yeah.
You guys outlive us. This is what it is most of the time.
We
right?
like to stick around.
You do, right? So they're also the caregiver in that long-term care scenario.
Right.
It got so intense for my mom that we had to pay a certain type of care to come in and allow her
Give her some rest
to go
there.
out and go to the movies with her grandkids.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it's 24 hours.
I think you're right. I think a lot of people assume, oh yeah, I've actually heard some people joke, I have long-term care. It's my kids. They're going to take care of me.
A lot of people think that's the case, and it's
you can't
think of
put
that
it
burden,
on
right?
someone.
You put it on your kids, and now your kids can't even go into their career. They can't even grow because it stops life. It completely comes in and changes everything for everyone around you.
Absolutely.
So it's very selfish to think that, oh, the next person will just take care of it.
Yeah, yeah. And like you were saying, once you get to that point, if you get to that point, cost is the last thing that you want to be thinking about.
Absolutely.
You want to be enjoying every moment of life that you have, and you want your loved one to do the exact same
And if it's something like my dad where dementia comes into play and you don't have power of attorney, you can't even deal with the costs when they come. A lot of people don't understand that you can't even pay the bills.
Right.
The wife can't even get access to some of the funds.
Wow.
That's important to plan for.
Absolutely.
You can't dodge that one.
You can't. The next thing I want to dive into here is real estate.
Okay.
I know real estate has often been touted as, part of the American dream. That's a big life milestone. I wonder I know this is maybe a hard question to answer, but when clients come to you and ask, is this a good time to buy real estate? What is your answer to them usually?
That's a great question. And I have a little bit of real estate myself. So I do try to answer that question. And I think it comes down to what do you want to accomplish? So is it a good time from a loan perspective? Absolutely. Interest rates are at an all-time low right now. So yes, from buying a piece of property. But it's deeper than just buying a piece of property. A lot of people think, oh, if I have a couple rental properties, I'm good because the mortgage is being paid down. And to me, that's so short-sighted of thinking. It means you're not worried about your ROI, your return on investment today.
Right.
I like to educate folks on methodologies on how they can buy properties at the right place, the right time, the right price, and include in rehab and the work that needs to get done so that they can take that producing asset, go to the bank, have a professional look at that as a producing asset and say, you know what, we're going to let you refinance out the money you put in. So now, Betsy, if you can think about it, you've taken maybe $500,000, done this project, got all your money back, and you go do it again. And you make maybe $300 a door doing that. See, that's how I like to look at real estate. A lot of people say, oh, well, I just want to pay off my rental, If you ever stop and you think about, I have $300,000 in my rental properties, and I'm getting $1,000 a month. How many thousands of months do you need to be able to get back that $200,000?
Are you going to be alive that many months?
Correct.
Yeah.
So people need to look at the real estate as an investment, as a cash flow center. From what I see from the people that I've been around that are doing it big, look at it that way. They want their ROI now. The average person's not a hedge fund just looking to park some dollars real quick.
Right, no.
Okay, so if they're looking to get into real estate or they're wondering, should I have this rental? Try to make as much money out of it as you can. So if you're there today and you're looking at real estate and you're thinking about rentals, or maybe you have a rental portfolio, I don't mind talking to you about that and going through that. A lot of advisors won't. Give me a call. Call our office, 1-800-685-3194, and we'll talk to you a little bit about some of the strategies we utilize to include tax deduction strategies and to include increasing your ROI. And most importantly, making it passive. People say they're real estate investors and they're out there hammering away. That's okay, but that's not an investor. You're in there doing it.
Right.
The concept is, how can I make the profit and make that real estate work for me so I can sit back, relax, and have that cash flow come in a truly passive model, because you do what we do, which is hire the best. So you do what you do best, you trade for the rest. If you're an engineer, you don't need to be trying to be the realtor and try to, survey who's going to be your renter.
Right.
It's too much work.
No.
You want to start pulling credit reports and doing all that? You don't need to be in control. You have to give that up. But it's okay if you did it right, because the profit will allow you to do it. And then you can stack it and stack it and stack it. So instead of having 2 or 3 properties, you have 20 or 30 properties or more.
Yeah, wow, such good advice. So what would you say to a client of yours that already has 1 or 2 properties, say, and they're looking to invest in another one? Would you recommend that they take out a loan on this new property, or do you think it's more intelligent to use leverage on existing properties?
I have that asked all the time.
I bet.
Interest rates are super low. Take out a loan.
Really?
Take out a loan. Don't pay cash. Opportunity cost, as we talk about in economics. What is the cost of doing this? Because you could have had your cash making you money. We had a person that had $1 million sitting in cash that wanted to do exactly that. They're losing about $50,000 or more a year, not because of market, it was sitting in cash. Because of the opportunity cost, they could have been making that had it would have been deployed effectively in the right investments that fit their needs.
Right.
So if you're looking to invest in real estate, use other people's money.
Yeah.
That is the key. Use the loan while it's cheap, while you can do it. Even using your own equity on your home through a HELOC. That's a beautiful gift, right? Do anything you can to leverage other people's dollars to be able to get the real estate portfolio that you want.
That is so interesting and good to hear. I feel like it's maybe advice from a past generation.
Pay it off and all that.
I remember when my parents paid off their mortgage, they were thrilled. They had a little party, and I thought, wow, this is a big milestone for them in their life. Of course, now, who knows what they could have done.
Right, and then I bet you what's funny is the next month when they got that bill for taxes and insurance, they're like, wait a second, why do I still have to pay? I thought my mortgage was paid off. Because you still have to pay things.
Yep.
So it's not as freedom fulfilling as everyone thinks it is.
Right.
There's more to it. So if you could keep that note and take those dollars that you would have paid there and reallocate that, whether it's into investments or more real estate or what have you, you're you're going to get a better ROI.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when rates are like 2, 3, 4%.
I mean, yeah, when it's the way it is, come on. So we do have to take another break soon, I hate to say, but I want to squeeze one more question in, which is that, you know, I have often heard that real estate is the best investment there is. Do you think that that's true? I know that might be a hard question to answer, but do you think, again, is that an antiquated way of thinking, or is it really one of the best investments that you can go for out there?
It's a great investment, but it doesn't do everything. It has functions to it, but no investment's going to have all things. It's not going to be, you know, tax advantage. It's not going to be guaranteed. It's not going to be income oriented. It's not going to be growth oriented. It's not going to have all of those things. It's just, that would be the super investment of the world.
Right.
So everything has its piece. Real estate is a great place to invest. It's not the only place. It's a tool in the toolbox. It's a way to diversify. It's great for tax advantage. It's great for income. It's good for growth, but it's not a hedge. It's not safe. It's not guaranteed, and it's not liquid.
Right.
So these are concerns, right? So it's not the end-all, be-all for everyone, but it is an excellent diversification tool. And a lot of advisors say the opposite. They want to see people cash out of real estate to invest. And I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying to have a loan and use cash and invest. I'm not saying get rid of the real estate. There's a difference.
Definitely. Yeah, wow, the more I talk to you, the more I realize that everything is so complicated and nothing should be all or nothing, right? Everything should be a little bit of each pool to work together so that you're left with the best possible outcome. We do have to take a quick break, but before we do, I want you to run by our viewers one more time this amazing offer that you have for them.
Great. If you're listening today and you're watching us and you think that you may want to have a green light retirement check and understand your current, maybe you have a real estate portfolio and you want to understand how you can better your ROI on that real estate portfolio. Maybe you have some renters and you're starting to get annoyed of being the landlord and you want to know what alternatives you can do to help yourself out with that. Feel free to give us a call at 1-800-685-3194. You'll talk to our staff and we will talk to you about your real estate portfolio. We'll bring in experts to help you understand. Should you take a loan out? Should you not? What type of ROI are you currently getting? Is it worth it to keep it? Is it not worth it to keep it? What type of spread should you have? Are you taking the right tax deductions? You want to know those answers? Give us a call, 1-800-685-3194.
Wow, so many things to keep track of, so many moving parts. I think it would behoove you to take one thing off your plate and give Fitzwilliams Financial a call so that you have a really experienced professional set of eyes looking at your portfolio for you. 1-800-685-3194. Give us a call and please don't go away. I still have a few more minutes with this guy and I'm going to squeeze all the juice I can out of him. We'll be right back on Spot on the Money. Hello and welcome back to Spot on the Money. I'm your host, Betsy Hume, and I'm so happy to be joined today by the CEO of Fitzwilliams Financial, Mr. Tim Fitzwilliams. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing great, Betsy. Thanks for having me again.
It's my pleasure.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I do a little bit better every time I have you because I learn a little bit more. I feel a little bit more empowered.
That's what it's all about.
And I actually do want to talk about that a little bit, is empowering do-it-yourself investors.
Sure.
Is that something that you recommend people do to try and do it themselves, or do you think there are a certain category of people that can? What's your take on that?
That's a great point. And the truth actually hurts.
Often does.
Unfortunately, how much money someone has is what allows them to figure out what they can get invested in or not. There are products, solutions, investments, and strategies that have labels on them that you can't get unless you have a certain amount of net worth. I don't want to get into the great details, but folks at home, if you want to Google accredited investor versus qualified investor, you'll see there are certain solutions that you can only get in. You want to figure out how to get into a hedge fund, you want to figure out how to get in a master limited partnership, you'll see how these things work. So as a do-it-yourselfer, you're never going to find out about any of that.
Right.
Maybe you do qualify, but there's no way you're going to find out about it unless you're led to it.
Right.
So it's one of those things that you can be a do-it-yourselfer and get by just fine, but you won't have all the information. There's too much. And your wealth may be limiting to that information. But if you go to an advisor, we can explain it all to you. You may not qualify for it, but you can at least understand what's out there. So that way you have the understanding of what you can do, or maybe that's what you aspire to do.
I also always think of it as kind of, do you remember when WebMD first came out and everyone thought that they were a doctor and they could do their own health care? I feel like that's true to a certain extent, maybe if the stakes aren't too high and what you're dealing with isn't too dangerous, but then you do inevitably hit a wall where you just can't access, you don't have that knowledge, you don't have that experience, and you can't help yourself the way you really need to be helped.
Hey, you're not seeing the case studies, you're not seeing the statistics, you're not understanding what that data really means, you're just seeing the marketing tagline. And to WebMD's point, it's because they want you to call a real physician. They want you to go to a doctor. They're just trying to say, we're giving you enough to wet your whistle so that you go and do the right thing. It's the same thing in our business. You're going to hear about something and it might attract you. I said that to be attractive to you, like, for example, the master limited partnerships. Okay, well, how are you going to find out about those? You're going to have to call an advisor. You're going to have to build a relationship with someone that can talk to you about those things.
And especially, I would think, if you were one of those DIY investors and then you got hit with a market like we have right now that's so volatile, what are some pieces of advice that you give to people who still really want to do it themselves, but they're faced with this really intense situation? You
have to ask yourself, are you really meant to do this? You
Yeah.
really got to ask yourself, do I want to be in charge of my portfolio when it's rough? It's easy to make money when the market's going up, and we haven't had a rough spell for a long time. But if there's volatility coming, which is overdue, if volatility is coming, you want to be in a situation where you don't have to worry about it. And here at our firm at Fitzwilliams Financial, we went and got the best, which is a chartered financial analyst, a CFA. It doesn't get any better than that. It's one of the hardest tests in the world to pass. And so that's who's managing the portfolio of our clients. And to that testament, in 2008, when the market lost 50%, he lost 25%.
Oh, wow.
It took everyone else 4 years to get back to where they were. But because he's so in tune and rebalances and looks at this stuff every Friday, we don't dare call him. He got it all back in about 8 months.
Wow.
Now look, that doesn't mean he's going to kill the market on the upside. So you might be like, his performance is good enough or it's okay. But it's that volatile time when the smartest person in the room is who you want driving the boat.
Absolutely. It's that famous quote. What does Warren Buffett say? The #1 rule of investing is don't lose money.
Absolutely.
It's even more important than making a bunch of money, right? It makes a lot of sense to me. So if I am a very stubborn DIY investor, what are some tips that you can give to let people know if their portfolio is good or bad?
Well, first let's identify if we really are a DIY, shall we?
Please.
I think that's step one.
Yeah.
Because just because you bought some stuff doesn't mean you really are a DIY.
Right.
I want to give credit where credit's due. If you're a DIY investor, then I believe you deserve credit. It means you're putting in about 25 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
It means you have a subscription service to a credible news source to understand what's going on in the market at a more technical level. And you also are probably subscribing to some type of chart service so you can see trends and study those things. And if you're doing that, then yes, Betsy, I believe you're a DIY person.
I'm not. I thought maybe I was, but now you've made it very clear to me. I am not a DIY investor.
And I think that's the confusion. A lot of people think, oh, I'm good, but they're not doing those things because you know what? You didn't have to the last 10 years. It's not needed. But as you said, volatility is here, it's coming, and it's probably going to continue, which is nothing more than normal.
Yeah.
If we go back and ask our grandparents and great-grandparents, they're going to say, yeah, the market goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And retirees will say, yeah, I've seen multiple up and downs. But we just haven't seen it in a while.
That's the thing, right? Yeah, we've gotten a little spoiled, so it's easy to think that it's no big deal.
It's easy, right? It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, the rising tide raises all ships.
Yes, yes, very true. Well, are there any asset classes that you prefer or that you particularly dislike when you're working on investments for your clients?
I won't say dislike, and I don't try to be the investment advisor that's going to say, I know all things. Again, I have the lanes. Our CFA has built multiple different portfolios based on the risk tolerance. So what I really want to say there, Betsy, to your question is based on your risk tolerance, based on your lifestyle. What do you need as far as income? Maybe you need income replacement. Maybe you don't need income replacement.
Well, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I feel like that's almost more comforting that it's not cookie cutter. You want it to be individual to you.
It's extremely complicated because there's so many factors to that.
My eyes are opened. I understand now. We only have about a minute left on the show.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I wish I could keep you all day. But will you let our viewers know one more time what the opportunity you have for them today before we close out the show?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in understanding, if you are a DIYer and you want to try to do things on your own, that's totally fine. But if you're interested in understanding more about what you have, are you in the best position? Or maybe you're the DIY person that you want to do some, but maybe you want to give up a little bit just so that you have somebody partner with you to help you navigate through these times. We're not saying you have to give everything to a firm like ours. What we're saying is you want to know what you have and decide what positions you should be in that's going to match your lifestyle. If that's you and you want to find out more, give us a call, 1-800-685-3194.
You heard him, folks. We'll see you next time on Spot on the Money.